A friend in Texas uses triticale instead of corn and oats. He's getting good results, and his fees is half the cost of ours. Often the best thing to do when getting started is simply to use a non-medicated bagged feed from the local mill. As you grow, you will want to get a custom mix, but do not be paranoid about the ration. The production model is the key to the bird. Do not The thing to remember is to experiment. Do not be afraid of trying new items in the ration to see what works best for you. Don't just listen to the feed mill salesman. Do your own research and your own thinking. Most important, observe the birds and see how they perform as you fine-tune the ration. Chapter 10. The Pen. Pastured poultry requires shelter, predator protection, and efficient feeding and watering systems. In addition, the fresher the pasture, the greater the quantity the birds will consume and healthier they will be. Just pasture is not enough. It must be fresh. Birds are extremely hard on pasture for a couple of reasons. One is that they physically scratch the crowns of the plants, which is good, but only for a short time. The second is that the manure is extremely high in available soluble nitrogen. This hot manure, as it is called, can easily cause nitrate toxicity in the soil or water. An excess can quickly deplete humus in the soil, just like chemical fertilizers. Capitalizing on this valuable resource, however, is an important goal. It should be assimilated into growing plants as quickly and efficiently as possible. The classic pasture of pastured poultry is a proverbial clay chicken yard. Traditional American homesteads have them. The chickens scratched out all the grass, and their manure buildup turned the soil into brick. Wet weather produced a mud hole, and dry weather produced a dust bowl. One solution, of course, is to simply let the chickens free range around the homestead. This is fine for a dozen chickens, as long as the farmer doesn't mind chickens roosting on the back porch or in the equipment shed or eating vegetables out of the garden. But for commercial production, this is not a solution. High density, short duration grazing is the answer with poultry, just like it is with livestock. But chickens do not hurt easily, and they require shelter, protection, and feed in addition to the forage. They are not herbivores. Typically, poultry producers range birds on a large pasture for a relatively long period of time until the pasture is denuded of vegetative cover. Moving the birds is a major problem, and not to mention negotiating equipment through a flock of hundreds to move feeders, shelters, and waterers without panicking the birds or crushing some of them. All these problems came together for us with a single solution, which we call the portable pen. This is a floorless cage 10 feet by 12 feet by 2 feet high and light enough to be moved by hand with the aid of a little dolly. By breaking up the flock of birds into many small units, absolute control over pasture, feed, and water can be maintained. The small groups mimic natural flock numbers, reducing stress and increasing efficiency. Each pen holds 75 to 100 birds. Made of pressure-treated softwood lumber to resist rotting, these pens weigh only about 150 pounds and can be moved with the dolly, which serves as a portable axle. Moving each pen takes roughly 20 or 30 seconds, and the birds walk on the ground as the trailing edge of the pen pushes them forward. Of course, they are eager to get to fresh pasture and therefore tend to stay well ahead of the trailing edge. Daily or twice daily moves ensure fresh pasture not only to stimulate eating but also for hygiene. Parasites and disease are a major problem of poultry under commercial production, but by giving them a new spot to lounge on every day, pathogenic problems can be virtually eliminated. A framework of wood, carefully braced for strength, offers a cheap yet strong structure. The long pieces are pressure-treated 1-inch by 6-inch boards ripped in half. These boards are ripped in thirds for all the braces. A 2-inch by 4-inch board ripped in half serves as the bottom board on the front and rear of the pen. as well as the brace that holds the waterer. These pieces take quite a bit of abuse and need to be strong. The end is entirely enclosed with aluminum roofing screwed into light framework. We use screws throughout because of the flexing that occurs when we pick up and move the pen. Nails soon begin working loose. Using cordless drills and self-drilling fine-threaded drywall screws allows us to build pens in a jiffy. The other end is 1-inch poultry netting on the vertical wall. Bigger netting allows predators to enter. Smaller netting, like hardware cloth, blocks out bugs like grasshoppers and crickets and is but more expensive. The top of the non-enclosed end is made of 2 doors, one of netting and one of aluminum roofing. The material is fastened to a light framework that just lies on top of the pen framework. No hinges or fastenings are necessary, and in fact should not be used, so that the doors can be completely removed from the pen to facilitate catching the birds on processing day. In windy areas like Nebraska and Kansas, fastenings may be required. The totally enclosed end will be run facing west, the normal direction of wind and weather. The east end is open to the morning sun. The netting door faces south to emit as much sunshine as possible. The opaque aluminum door covers the feed trough. The water, a commercially produced hanging type, is suspended from the top brace near the pen's middle, but under the netting quadrant door, so that if it rains, the rainwater will go into the water trough. A 5-gallon white plastic bucket sits atop the pen on the eastern end on the door and pen bracing as a reservoir to gravity flow into the waterer. The waterer and bucket ride with the pen when it is being moved. The trough feeder must be removed for moving. We use trough feeders because the long rectangle provides more linear feeding space as a ratio of feed volume than do round feeders. Bridging is also a major problem in round feeders. In hot climates, it may be necessary to hinge the vertical wall roofing on the west end for increased ventilation. A Florida friend actually made the west end a peaked roof with netting in the triangular end to increase ventilation. Another friend built a pen of aluminum conduit to lighten it, but it was so light that predators could come in underneath and a stiff breeze could blow it over. He ended up having to stake it down every time he moved it. Another friend had the same problem. After building out one of PVC pipe, the pen should be heavy enough to mash down grass. Tarpaulins for the opaque shelter rather than aluminum can be used to heat the interior of the pen, but if the sun is up and the temperature is more than 55 degrees Fahrenheit, the birds much prefer the cooler reflective properties of the aluminum. If the pen is built too heavy, it becomes cumbersome. Moving the pens with a tractor is unacceptable because it frightens the chickens. Movement speed is also much less flexible, resulting in injured birds. Hand moving is the simplest, quickest, and most efficient way to go, as far as I can tell. A floored pen, which the birds go into at night and free range out from during the day, has many disadvantages, especially with Cornish cross broilers, which are extremely lethargic. They simply will not walk enough to find and eat fresh pasture and bugs. They are bred to eat, drink, lie down, and gain weight. The portable pens afford the birds fresh daily pasture without their really having to walk for it. Although the birds do not walk one pen length, the rest of the day they are within normal breed movement parameters for water and feed, and their floor is forage. The portable house free range model also requires much more building material. It is more disruptive of the bird's routine because they are penned up, especially until you get there in the morning to let them out. The bulk of the birds' eating occurs in the early morning, so it is crucial that be the time they receive fresh pasture. Predation during the day is a real problem. Raccoons, chicken hawks, foxes, and other predators will attack in broad daylight. By keeping these chickens within the safety of the pen 24 hours a day, they receive the protection benefit along with the amenities of fresh pasture and lounge area. There is no building to clean out, no litter to haul. All the droppings go immediately on growing forage, which can utilize it right away to capitalize on the nitrogen injection. The downfall of many alternative poultry operations has been with a chicken yard. In an effort to provide range to the birds, producers have not differentiated between stale range and fresh range. This is a critical factor because it spells the difference between success and failure. Many people view the pen as an unnecessary labor-intensive component of this model and balk at implementing it. But you simply cannot get the level of health and forage utilization without the pen. If a stationary house with rotated pastures extended out like spokes is used, the areas closest to the house will invariably be overgrazed and turned to dirt, while the far reaches are undergrazed. Pathogens build up around the house in the traffic areas, and there is simply no way for nature to cleanse that area. To my knowledge, nature sanitizes itself in only two ways: sunshine, rest, and decomposition. These limited alternatives have great import to livestock producers. In the sunshine rest mode, the sun, which is the great sterilizer, gently bathes the areas it touches with radiant heat that dries moisture. Ultraviolet radiation kills pathogenic organisms. The rest period is necessary to let the slow ray gun do its work. Most parasites, for example, cannot live more than 2 weeks without a host. Most parasites, too, require moisture to go through their life cycle. Wet grass blades contain many more pathogens than dry ones. Realizing that many of these critters are microscopic and moisture provides the only way for them to paddle around from place to place. Deprive them of that, and they become fairly immobile and localized. The rest period is necessary to deprive these pathogens and parasites of a host. The rest period should include some dry time to help destroy the organisms, as well as be long enough to deprive parasites of a host. Clearly, this natural sanitation principle discredits any sustained stay model that includes range. But now let's move to the second natural sanitizer, decomposition. This not only occurs in the field, but is extremely important in housing models. This gets into the deep litter concept. Is it worth being reminded that as soon as we overload the soil or the house floor with too much nitrogen, we create harmful nitric acids, we destroy beneficial organisms, we lose nitrogen through vaporization or leaching, and we have a cold, hostile medium? Remember that the carbon-nitrogen ratio should be around 30-1, and that an ammonia smell indicates you need more carbon. As limited as it is, confinement housing can be sanitary, but it requires a tremendous injection of management energy and materials to keep it functioning without sanitation parameters. Our only confinement house is the brooder house, but that is only on the front end, where not too much manure is generated and not much costly housing is required. The big injections come as the birds get big, and then I am confident that the pen offers the most efficient alternative. Is certainly a yard, even if it is rotated, does not do the job. It is better to be totally confine the animals in a well-lighted, well-ventilated facility than to confine them in a barn with continual access to an adjacent exercise yard. Poultry, for example, that are classified free range on a yard that has constant poultry pressure is hygienically unacceptable. The birds would be better off completely confined in a facility that meets the parameters of this discussion. In fact, some of the largest organic poultry operations in the country have succumbed to disease and gone belly up for exactly this reason. They had range but not enough rest. We all know the historical record of human plagues when hygiene wasn't followed and unsanitary conditions prevailed. Animals fall under the same rules. Disease outbreaks are not necessary. Any true husbandman can and will institute rearing models that maximize hygiene in his animals. I cannot overemphasize the value of the pen to the smooth running of the pastured poultry model. It answers the need for small flock grouping, sanitary conditions, fresh forage, proper manure management, and predator control. It is also far cheaper and simpler to maintain than a stationary house of equal square footage. Certainly, we would not want to disparage any attempt to properly pasture poultry, but for us, the small portable pen seems to have addressed all the critical elements associated with commercial pastured Cornish cross broiler production. Chapter 11. Moving the chicks out to pasture. Sometimes between 2 and 4 weeks, the baby chicks are ready to move out onto pasture. In extremely hot weather, they can be moved out earlier. In fact, we have moved them out at 7 days, but I wouldn't advise that. It's too soon. The birds are simply too small to negotiate the grass. The earliest I would advise putting them out would be 12 days. On the other hand, every week past 4 that the birds are kept in the brooder will cost you 10% in carcass weight at the end. Remember that the reason factory-raised birds receive hormones and antibiotics is to compensate for the unnatural conditions under which they are being raised. Their air is full of fecal dust, their litter is filthy, they do not receive fresh air and sunshine, and they are not receiving green material or exercise. The brooder house period closely resembles conventional production and therefore must be cut as short as